was 10 years old when Grandma came to live with us. It was about 6 months after Granddad passed away, and I guess, looking back, she must have been lonely in that big house of theirs, rattling around with only the grief and memories for company. So despite a few protests from Mom, my parents took her in. There was no protest from me, none at all. Grandma was loud and fun, and I loved her. She had an almost limitless supply of boiled sweets, and she'd always slip me a couple whenever she saw me. She was always the first to stick up for me when I got in trouble too. But it was her stories I loved best. Grandma had all kinds of stories. Stories about growing up during World War II. Stories about her friends. Sad stories and funny stories. But it was her scary stories that were my favorite. Grandma said she used to dabble in the occult, Ouija boards, tarot cards, fortune telling. Most of the stories I'd forget, but there was one that stayed with me. The story about the shower and Mr. Long Fingers. Grandma loved her bath, candles, incense, laying there until the water turned cold. She said it was the only place she could relax, the only place that was safe. Then one night, she leaned in close. You know, people like me, we can't stay in the shower too long. It's far too risky. I asked her why. She paused, then said quietly, "It's only dangerous if you close your eyes. If you close them for more than 10 seconds. I felt my chest tighten. Why? She smiled slightly. You know that game where someone turns their back and the others sneak up? I nodded. That's what it's like in the shower. That's what it's like with Mr. Long Fingers. I asked her what that was. She leaned even closer. No one knows. Some say it's a creature drowned to the heat. Others say it's something that comes through the steam. But the people who've seen it, they don't come back. I swallowed. Why not? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she whispered, as long as you follow the rules, you will be fine. I said, what rules? When you're in the shower, don't close your eyes too long. 5 seconds is fine. 10 is just about okay. But any longer than that. I leaned closer. Then what? You might feel something in the room with you. And if you go past 15 seconds, you might hear it. I said, hear what? She smiled. Fingers on the glass. Then she whispered, if you ever hear it, promise me, darling, you won't open your eyes. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined something watching me. The shower was the worst. I'd stand under the water, close my eyes, and count 5 seconds. 6, 7, and then I'd feel it. Not exactly being washed, but something close. Something waiting. I'd panic, open my eyes too early, and look through the glass just to make sure I was alone. A week later, I woke up to the sound of water running. The shower was on. I ran down the hallway, heart pounding. I banged on the door. "Grandma." No answer. The handle turned. The door opened. Steam poured out. And there she was, laying in the shower, not moving. Her eyes wide open. One hand on her chest, the other dragged across the glass. They said it was a heart attack. Quick, painless. But I knew better, because later I went back into the bathroom and I looked at the glass, at the marks her finger made. They weren't just on the inside. My neighbor knows things about me he shouldn't. I've never told him anything. I'm writing this because I need someone else to tell me I'm not crazy. I moved into my apartment 8 months ago. 3rd floor, corner unit. I picked it because it was quiet and the building felt anonymous. The kind of place where people keep to themselves. That's all I wanted. Anonymous and quiet. My neighbor across the hall, unit 304. His name is Brian. I know this because he introduced himself the day I moved in. Which was fine. Normal. He helped me carry a box inside without asking if I wanted help. Which felt slightly off, but I told myself he was just being friendly. He's maybe 50, average everything, height, build, face. The kind of person you'd walk past 100 times and never remember. The first thing that bothered me was small. About 2 weeks after I moved in, I ran into him by the mailboxes, and he asked how I was settling in. I said fine. He said, "Good, you getting enough sleep? Heard you up pretty late a few nights ago." I laughed it off, thin walls, whatever. But I'm a quiet person. I don't watch TV loud. I don't have people over. If he could hear me, it was because he was listening for me. I told myself I was overthinking it. A month later, I came back from the grocery store, and he was in the hallway. He looked at my bags and said, "Oh, you found that new place on Clement Street. Good prices, right?" I had gone to that grocery store for the first time that day. I had never mentioned any grocery store to him. I had maybe 6 conversations with this man, total, and none of them were about where I shop. I said, "Yeah, great prices," and went inside. I stood in my kitchen for a long time, and I started paying attention after that. He knows my schedule, not in a way I can prove, But in a way I feel every time I run into him, which is too often. At times that are too specific. He's always just arriving or just leaving when I am. He knows I work from home on Fridays. He knows I order food on Tuesday nights. He mentioned once, casually, that he'd seen me on my work calls. You always look so focused, which means at some point he's seen me through my window, because I never told him I worked from home at all. I started keeping my blinds down last week when it stopped feeling like a coincidence. I was in the laundry room in the basement, and he came in. Which is fine. People do laundry. We made small talk. He asked if I'd heard from my sister lately. I have never ever mentioned my sister to him. I have never mentioned any family to him. I asked him what he meant. He smiled. The same easy, unbothered smile he always has. Said he thought he remembered me mentioning her once. Said never mind, he must be mixing me up with someone else. I said, okay. I finished my laundry. I came upstairs. I checked my door when I got back. Locked. Dead pulled. Chain. I've been thinking about it for 6 days, and I cannot remember a single conversation where I mentioned my sister. I cannot explain how he knows I have one. There's a woman I've seen coming and going from his apartment maybe once a month. Youngish, dark coat, always looks tired. I assumed girlfriend. I smiled at her once in the elevator, and she didn't smile back. Just looked at me with this flat expression, like she was somewhere else entirely. I haven't seen her in about 6 weeks. I don't know if that means anything. I don't know if any of this means anything. But this morning, I was leaving for a coffee run, and Brian was in the hallway. He looked at me and said, "You look tired. Didn't sleep well?" I slept fine. I looked fine. I had not said a word to him. He just smiled and went back inside his apartment. I stood in the hallway alone for a second before I walked into the elevator. I don't know why I did this, but I looked back at his door. The peephole went dark. He was watching me leave. My boyfriend has been acting terrified of me since we got back from the Appalachian Trail. I don't know what I did wrong. I need to write this down because I feel like I'm losing my mind, and putting it somewhere outside of my head might help. Dan and I have been together for 4 years. We're the kind of couple that finishes each other's sentences, that has a whole private language of inside jokes and shorthand. I know him better than I know anyone. I say that because I need you to understand that when I tell you something is wrong with him, I am not being paranoid. I know this man. We got back from a section hike on the Appalachian Trail 11 days ago. We did about 200 miles over 3 weeks, starting in Virginia. It was Dan's idea. He'd always wanted to do a long stretch, and I had never done anything longer than a weekend trip. I was nervous. He was so excited he could barely sleep the week before we left. The first 2 weeks were incredible. Hard, but incredible. We fell into a rhythm. We'd hike until late afternoon, set up camp, cook whatever dehydrated thing we'd packed, lay on top of our sleeping bags, talking until one of us fell asleep mid-sentence. I felt closer to him out there than I ever had. No phones, no obligations, just the two of us and the mountain. It was the third week when things started to feel off. I don't know how to explain it, except to say that the woods changed. Not visibly. Everything looked the same trail, the same trees, but the quality of the air felt different. Thicker somehow, like the atmosphere had shifted by a degree. You couldn't measure, but you could feel it in your chest. Dan felt it too. He got quieter. He'd always been the one pointing things out. Look at the ridge. Look at that bird, but he stopped. He just hiked. Eyes forward, jaw set. On the fourth night of that week, I woke up in the middle of the night, and he wasn't in the tent. I found him standing about 20 feet away at the tree line. Just standing there, looking into the dark. I called his name, and he turned around so fast, it startled me. He looked. I don't know, not scared exactly. More like he'd been caught doing something. He said he'd needed to use the bathroom. We went back to the tent. He didn't sleep after that. I could feel him laying awake next to me all night. We finished the hike 2 days later and drove home. I thought once we were back in our apartment with our things and our routines, he'd return to himself. But he hasn't. He flinches when I touch him. Not every time, but enough that I've started hesitating before I reach for him. Last week, I came up behind him while he was doing dishes and put my hand on his shoulder, and he made a sound, not a word, just a sound, and stepped away from me. He apologized immediately, said he was jumpy lately, blamed it on bad sleep. He's not sleeping. I hear him up at all hours, but when I get up to check on him, he always comes back to bed right away. Says he's fine and lays there, stiff as a board, until I fall asleep. He started locking the bedroom door at night. We share a bedroom. We share a bed. For the past 6 days, I've been waking up on the couch with no memory of getting there, and the bedroom door locked from the inside, and Dan on the other side of it, claiming he has no idea how I ended up in the living room. He says I must be sleepwalking. He says it gently, the way you say things to someone you're frightened of. I asked him last night to please just tell me what was wrong. I sat across from him at the kitchen table, and I asked him to look me in the eye and tell me what I had done. He looked at me for a long time. His jaw worked. I watched him decide something. He said, "You haven't done anything. I've just been in my head since the trail. I'm sorry." He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. He let go after less than a second. I went to the bathroom after dinner and stood at the sink for a long time. I looked at myself in the mirror. Normal. Tired. A little thinner than before the hike, but normal. Turned the sink on and splashed water on my face. When I looked up, I was smiling. I hadn't smiled I wasn't smiling, but my reflection was just for a second, just long enough for me to see it, wearing an expression I hadn't put there. Wide, still, and patient. Then it was just my face again. I told myself it was the lighting, the water in my eyes. But I've just been thinking about the third week on the trail, how the air changed, how I have almost no clear memories from those last 2 days of hiking. Just flashes a strange taste in my mouth. A sound like something large moving to the trail, just past where the trees got thick. Waking up outside the tent once with dirt under my fingernails and no explanation. I've been thinking about how Dan stood at the tree line that night. How he looked when he turned around. The sound he made when I touched his shoulder. I've been thinking about that mirror. I've been telling myself I need to ask him what he saw on that trail, what he's been seeing once we got back. But there's another part of me, quiet, patient. Underneath that doesn't want him to answer. That part doesn't want him to say it out loud. I also don't know what that means. I don't know if I should be scared of what's happening to Dan or scared of something else entirely. I just know that last night I dreamt about the woods, the smell of them, the dark. And when I woke up, I was hungry in a way I've never ever been before. A way I don't have words for. I don't know how to end this post because I don't know what I'm even asking. I guess I just needed someone else to know.